Hey, this is Riley from Thrice. I play drums, and we are heading down under in late August and early September for about 10 days. And we're really, really excited. Just got done with the US leg of that tour, and it was incredible. So we can't wait to bring it to Australia.
Beautiful, Riley. Thanks for joining us today, mate.
hmm My pleasure.
So, as you say, Thrice will be in Australia this August and September for the 20th anniversary tour of your album, The Artist in the Ambulance. So, I know you guys are on tour a fair bit over there, but how do you mentally prepare for a tour like this, like overseas? It's a few days away from home.
Oh man, Australia is a unique one. Just because of the time difference and the amount of air travel you've got to do. It can be really taxing, but I think the more we've gone over there, the better we've got at adjusting. Definitely requires a lot of coffee to keep you on point, but yeah, it's exhausting. But ever since we've come down there the first time in like 2004, I want to say, it's been incredible. The support has been totally overwhelming from the get go. So we're really looking forward to this.
And as we say, just to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the album, The Artist in the Ambulance. So, in the 20 years since that album's come out, bro, what's changed with Thrice in that period?
A lot. We've gotten older. A lot has changed. A lot has changed sonically. We've explored some new areas of music. We don't necessarily shred and play metal inspired stuff as much as we used to back then. Um, but we re-recorded and revisited the record and put that out in February of this year. So being able to revisit these songs and then being able to do this US tour that we just finished up, it's kind of like riding a bike. Like yes, we're older, but we've kind of breathed new life into these old songs, and I think it came across really well. It seemed like people really enjoyed it, and we had a blast. So it's been cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when you say re-recorded and revisited the album, like did you change much from the initial recording?
not really. We had some discussions early on. As complex as like changing the track listing and reworking songs, but we wanted it to feel familiar, so we didn't want to change too much, but we wanted to breathe a little bit of new life into it. So what we did in that regard was just like some slight tweaks with like our tones. I think we play in a much more comfortable fashion now. There's a little bit of ebb and flow to the way we play, whereas back then everything was very pedal to the metal, and it's not that anything's like drastically slower than it was on the original, but it just has better feel overall. Um, and I mean, I might have changed a few drum fills here and there, added a few here and there. We took off some of the bells and whistles that the original had. We had like uh, orchestral parts that we had a string quartet perform, and we tried to recreate those in a way that we can recreate live without like using a ton of samples and stuff. So I think it came out really cool.
Speaking of recreating it live, bro, like you're going to be playing that album from start to finish on the tour. Like, is
hmm
that an easy thing to do? Like when you make the album, I can't imagine you ever thought that you'd be playing it front to back in its entirety.
Right. One of the benefits of that record is that everything is in the same guitar tuning. And over time, we've gone everywhere from like E standard tuning to drop D to D standard to drop C to playing stuff on baritone guitars. So when we're putting together a set for a normal tour, a lot of it is like, oh my God, like how do we make this flow without doing guitar changes after every song or every other song? So it's really nice to play this album in full and just kind of like strap in and know that we're just going to rip 11 songs in a row. And to be honest, initially, the flow of it and the amount of energy that is expended, the amount of shredding the guitar guys are doing, the tempos that we're playing at, it was a bit taxing at the beginning, but we settled into that like a good week or so into the tour, and by the end of the tour, we were firing on all cylinders, and it just felt normal. The flow was really good, and energy was great, so it's been cool.
So going back to that album, mate, like when you made it 20 years ago, what are some of your best memories from making that album?
I think the recording process, even though it was really stressful, it was our first major label release. There was obviously a lot of pressure from the label to, make their signing worthwhile. And we recorded in a historic studio in Bearsville, New York, which is in upstate New York. It's a beautiful property, this huge studio that tons of massive bands have recorded in. So there was a lot of history there, and we felt really lucky to be able to experience that. And then we had 8 weeks to record, which is honestly a luxury. It's not something that comes around that much, but when you have a major label budget, you have a little time to experiment and stuff. So that's why we were able to do stuff like getting a string quartet to make an appearance here and there, multi-tracking guitars, spending a week or two in a massive drum room, which is something, we've never really done that since, to that extent. So it was just a really special experience. It seemed totally surreal to us, and kind of still does. Doesn't seem like it really happened.
And of course, you toured Australia on that album cycle, mate. So how different is this show going to be to that one 20 years on?
The headlining sets we've been doing for the US leg of the tour, we do the album in full, we play a B-side from the record, and then we dive into just little snippets of our entire catalog. We tried to feature 1 or 2 songs from every album. So it's a good 90 minutes of music. And back then, I don't even know if we had 90 minutes of presentable music to our name. So we were playing shorter sets back then. But it's nice. It's like I said earlier, like you rip through that Artist in the Ambulance play, and then you settle into some more modern stuff. And it balances it out a bit, which is really cool.
That actually, when you mention it like that, it's the opposite to most things in life, bro. Like as you get older, you normally do less. You guys are 20 years older, and you're playing more than what you were when you were younger.
Yeah.
And how do you cope with things like that? Like your body can't do what it used to do, but you're still pushing it further than what you used to actually push it.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just preparing mentally and physically for that. It's a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, trying to stay in shape, trying to eat right, trying to get proper sleep. Back in the day in 2003, you're in your mid-20s and you feel indestructible, and you kind of are, like you get three hours of sleep and you're fine the next day. Or, you go out and party a little bit after the show, and then you're fine the next day. And when you're 40, you can't survive on 3 hours of sleep. Like you fall apart. So it's just about preparation, and then really maintenance of your body and your mind on tour now. And plus, like, you look at Metallica right now, they're out playing stadiums and they're playing for like 2 hours a night. And granted, they can afford to have more days off than we can, but those dudes are still shredding at like 60 years old. So that's all the inspiration you need.
It's so true. Now, you mentioned before, like you started with a bit of the orchestrals on the Artist in the Ambulance, but after that, when you moved on to follow up, and I hope I say this right, Vheissu?
It's Vheissu, yeah. Vheissu? Yeah.
You sort you took that a bit further, like you used more electronics and more keyboards on that. Like, was that a planned progression from those albums?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And a lot of that is stuff that we were hoping to incorporate a bit more in Artist in the Ambulance, but the writing process for Artist was a little bit more rushed than we had hoped, and that was pressure from the label to follow up our last indie release with a record the following summer, and they wanted to get us on the road, and they wanted material that they owned that they could promote. So, I mean, I think like I'm kind of brain farting right now, but yeah, I mean, that's the long and short of it, I guess. Without rambling.
So in the period from then till now, mate, like the music world's had heaps of changes and evolutions, I guess. But as a band, have Thrice tried to change and adapt with that, or have you sort of more stuck to your own path?
No, we always have stuck to our own path. You know, in the early days, when we were trying to get signed with indie labels, we would get letters back from labels that were like, oh, you guys need to figure out if you want to be a heavy band or like a catchy band. Like, you need to figure out if you're going to scream or sing. When we put out Artist in the Ambulance originally, we got lumped into this whole screamo movement that was happening with bands like Thursday and The Used and My Chemical Romance. And when it came time to make Vheissu, we kind of reacted against Artist in the Ambulance and tried to push it further left. And then every record since has been kind of a reaction to the previous one. You know, we'll set parameters early on in the writing process, like this is where we want to go and this is how we want to get there. But every record changes as you start writing it, and then it changes as you start recording it. So even our best laid plans from the get-go, they just evolve during the writing and recording process. And we don't really pay attention to current trends. And if anything, we try to steer fairly clear of them, just because we enjoy being kind of genreless, if that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that'll do, mate. All right, Ronnie. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for your time today. Thrice are in Australia starting in late August, following through into September. And I believe a lot of the tickets are selling out quickly for the shows. So if you want to get along there, get yourself a ticket shortly.
Yeah, man, we cannot wait to get down there. It's been a while.
Mate, we can't wait to have you, brother. You take care until then, and we'll see you in a couple of months.
Right on. All right. Take care, man.